Welcome to Growth Architects, a podcast for tech entrepreneurs, product innovators, and marketing strategists. Whether you're searching for product market fit, exploring new growth channels, or trying to avoid common startup pitfall, this is where you'll find proven strategies to fuel your success. And now, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Growth Architects. My guest today is the amazing Abby Bentley from Osenso. With her today, we're going to discuss everything about using AI to make your company processes more efficient and get more results. Stick until the end if you're curious to know how you can start implementing AI into your business processes in order to uncover more possibilities. Abby, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
AI is really on top of everyone's mind these days. But before we jump to that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do with Osenso?
Amazing. So I'm Abby, and I have a business called Osenso, and we go into businesses and really help them to understand how to integrate AI into their sales and marketing journey. So really to supercharge their lead generation in particular. And every business is so different, but I'm really keen on going in and listening to a business first, understanding their challenges, and then helping businesses to really unlock AI as a tool rather than where people say, great, what's your AI strategy? We need to get something in place tomorrow. This is an amazing tool, or so many tools, but it's a real incredible thing when used in the right way, as long as it's aligned to the business goals, business strategies. And so we're there to bring that together and help make the magic happen with AI.
Good. So as a consultant, you really see your role more as helping businesses implement AI based on the current strategy that they have, rather than say, okay, here's AI, and I will tell you all the possible things that you can do with that, right? And I will create a strategy for you. Do I say it correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I find it's quite an interesting one because you hear so many businesses nowadays where it is a buzzword. Everyone's really excited about it. Everybody wants to have the latest tool and, there's one coming to market every 5 minutes. How do you stay on top of it? How do you make sure that your business is utilizing, every square inch of AI? And I think if your approach is let's just use it and max everything out, what you'll end up with is a very expensive tech stack, one that's not integrated into your own business, loads of tools that are completely disconnected. Whereas actually what this needs to be doing is either solving challenges in your business or opening up new opportunities. And so it's really important to make sure it is aligned to what you're doing, and that, you really cherry pick the tools out there that might absolutely open up something new that you're not doing now, but it's very much aligned to your business and it's taking you in a direction that you want to be going.
Got it. And when you say we help businesses, right, what kind of business do you see mostly benefit from the kind of services that you provide? So what kind of businesses are mostly helped by, say, integrating AI in their sales or marketing processes?
I honestly, we work with a multitude of different sizes, from like larger enterprises, SMEs, some small founder led as well. I think that everybody can really benefit from what you put in place. I think the scale of what you put in place can be different depending on the complexity of each business. But even myself in my own business, I integrate it day in, day out with things that I do. And I genuinely think that without the tools that I have, I'd need 5 additional people to be able to do what I do on a day to day. It is incredible. The usage that you can get out of it, whether you're a larger or a smaller business, I think is equally valuable. But where you might start on that journey and where you might start with the integrations might be slightly different. So, from a kind of sales and marketing perspective, I find the big businesses quite often have big data, and analyzing that big data, using it in the best way, getting their reporting, and then really driving that into how you're finding more leads, and that you're kind of starting to supercharge that part of the journey is really important. But, there's a great wealth in those businesses, and that's where AI, comes in to do that, big analysis and make it really relevant for potentially, hundreds of users on the other side. That can be great. Whereas in a much smaller business, that efficiency side of what you put in, particularly, in my own, as I said, that's where it's like it's in a sweet spot for smaller businesses in particular.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Well, from what I know, the listener of this podcast are mainly, say, small to medium companies. Some of them are in tech, some of them are business providers. So what kind of recommendation would you give to, say, the owner or the CMO of a company like that? Why is it so crucial to start implementing AI into their processes?
I think some of the best things that you can put in place initially are some of your personal hacks for a small business. So I one of my favorite tools at the moment is Fixer. It's an incredible tool, really powerful. It's effectively like a mini executive assistant that's in my business. Fixer will come in, it will organize my inbox, it's got all my labels, it tells you when things are still to be responded to, so nothing gets lost within there. Everything drops into right categories, so it's not, completely all over the place when I get in. But the bit where I find it is amazing is it joins my meetings, it summarizes my notes, it gives me my actions, and then it pre-drafts my emails based on my meetings so that when I come into my inbox, it's there. And it also does that for anything that's just dripping into my inbox naturally as well. So that element where it pre-drafts is incredible because you sit down, you're thinking about what to say. The time you take, well, certainly me, in managing inboxes is crazy. And somebody said to me years ago, where in your job description does it say answer emails? Yet so many of us sit in front of our computers all day, you're answering emails. So I just frees up your time.
And the follow-up is by far one of the most daunting tasks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I love that. I think it's amazing.
Okay, cool. Well, look, I would definitely like to dive deep into the most tactical part of like how to introduce AI into process. Also, all the tips you might have in terms of like tools that you see work there, your favorite tools to use. Before we dive into that, though, I would be curious to know more on in terms of like process. Would you like to share with us like one or two kind of use case almost of which you're proud, like companies that you work with, for which you managed to do to create some kind of impact, and also kind of dissect for us where adding AI really add value?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the businesses that we've been working with more recently, and I think, touched on the kind of big data side of things. And I do think this is incredible. They have a wealth of three different very large data sets into their business. And, the data information that they have, they feed that out to their customers. But the way they go about that in the moment is they have to go into three different tools to do it. Everything's very manual. They have, I think it's about 40 individuals that are pulling different reports for different clients at different times. So, quite a large group of individuals. But the time that they would spend in a week was potentially about a day. A day and a half that they were spending on creating these reports manually. And a lot of that was, as I said, going in. So we've built some custom workflows to connect the different tools. And we'll come on to that in a minute. But I think, where you get the kind of AI workflow tools, they are honestly amazing. And for me, that's where, you really take AI to another level. But building those out so that we put the parameters in place so that each individual now gets the information that they need into their inbox. So rather than, a day and a half worth of going into different systems, going into different areas of trying to find that data, we've pulled those workflows out. So all of that is gone. And then we've also overlaid that with a tool called Gamma, again, like a really cool one for presentations. So we built their custom branding into the front side of that. So what, as I said, was a day and a half's work has now gone down to an hour for those individuals, which is incredible. And this is where it's great. It's freeing up the time for individuals to be doing their job, to add the insight, to create that real value for their clients, not just researching, going into different, tools to pull data. And this is where I think it can be really, really helpful for businesses to really max out what they're doing. So yeah, I think, that's something that we've been really proud of because it's really tangible to take so much time out of somebody's day, to give them that back. And, it's, allows them to focus on the value part of what they're offering.
Cool. Now that's very interesting. And so you said you work for this company. You actually managed to save employees a lot of a lot of time. Things that they were doing before in like 1 day and a half was kind of reduced to 1 hour. Usually, once you get projects like this, right, where does it start? Who's your first point of contact? What is kind of the request that you get from company? Is it something like, cut our time or just try to make processes more efficient? What is really, say, the person that you talk to and the trigger from their side?
I find a real variety. Um, some some individuals are looking for very specific user cases for AI. They tend to be, I would say, they tend to be the smaller projects in terms of we're looking to, I don't know, automate a certain area of outreach or something like that, and that's a very specific user case. Where we work on larger to be honest, I find that tends to be, we'd like to implement AI. We don't really know what to do with it. Can you give us some recommendations? And those conversations start, with a lot of fluidity because each individual business is so different. So it's really to understand where the pain points are in the business and where there are opportunities to then integrate AI. So a lot of that starts with a lot of listening, with workshops across different departments, mapping that out to really understand where the teams are spending a lot of admin heavy time, but also then to really pull out where the opportunities are, which, to be honest, until you really listen to a business and you listen to a team and you get under the skin of it over a few weeks, you can't just come in one day and say, hey, I've got all the answers, because the tools are very different and they very much depend on what that business does. So we work on a 5-week sprint when we go into a business to run the workshops, to do the commercial modeling, to really understand, what the cost benefit analysis is, and to outline the top line workflows of what we would advise to put in place, so that creates a real business case, I guess, for a business to say, these are the tools, this is how it's going to either open this opportunity, save money, drive commercial revenue growth. This is what we believe the cost of it's going to be. We take all of their stats and data as well. We model that out to say, this is what it will look like for you. And then we move into the delivery side of things. Is then quick delivery is how we build those workflows, get them up and running. And that's obviously on a larger scale project. If we're on something much smaller, on a smaller business, on a smaller user case, then we go in at a far lower level. And we also run sessions and coaching with teams. So we'll run workshops for 2-3 hours. So that can be another thing as well, where we go through and we'll say, as a small business, this can be a really good tech stack. We look at personal hacks, we look at business hacks, and then we look at team integration. So, how to max out, the communication of a team together as well. And so we kind of look at it from that side. And so then sometimes we also will quite often get, a few different elements that we then integrate with teams off the back of those sessions as well. So a bit of a mixture.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. What's very interesting for me is that, I say differently from what I expected, actually the majority of people come to you with the request of like, we just want to implement AI. Please let us understand, how and what would be the gains, which I think is very interesting. So you have this kind of like consultative approach where you get in, and then I guess you kind of create for them a report telling them how they can optimize it. They can optimize processes based on AI.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to come now to the more, say, hands-on part of the interview. So something that you already started describing before, especially considering the kind of audience of this podcast, which is, again, smaller companies, sometimes solopreneurs, tech companies, service companies. Like, what are some tips that you would say on how companies can start implementing AI into the process, in half a day? Things like quick gains when it comes.
Absolutely. I think my biggest tip is, don't be afraid, just do it. Pick an area that you feel is your biggest area of annoyance in your day. Then do your research, try out a tool, see how it works. They're very intuitive. They can be very quick. So another great tool that I really enjoy is, for my own small business, is Dripify. Clay is something kind of very similar to that. So that links in with my own LinkedIn account that I have. And then I have set up workflows within Dripify, which will do my outreach for me, but it's very specifically written by myself. So, you go through, it's your tone, you make sure that it's not going to be sending messages when you get into conversations with certain people, at which point it comes straight back through to you. But it's amazing, that, again, going back to the time saving hacks, it's really important as a business owner that you're growing your business and you're growing your outreach, as well as you're also, doing the delivery of your business as well.
Yeah,
So
of course.
I
So
think,
you go and talk the talk and not just walk the
yeah,
walk.
exactly. You're like, we have to do both. So I think where you can utilize some of these tools, but they're very much coming from you and they're running some of that outreach for you. That's amazing
Yeah.
because, it's not taking away that personal interaction. It's still your communication. You have to be really careful with it because we all get a million things on LinkedIn a day going, hey.
Yeah, exactly. So let me interrupt you here, right? Because obviously there's a lot of this software that allows you to kind of do cold outreach. I use them myself for cold emailing, LinkedIn messages as well. Do you also use AI to kind of personalize the text that each one of them receives?
Yeah, so I link it up with my chat GPT. I have a few custom chat GPTs that I've put together, and I link them up, and that's where I use the really cool workflows. I use Zapier, but there's also N8N that you can create the workflows so that they can really start to communicate a bit more sophisticated, and you are really creating this intelligent system that is actually working together. And I think there are great AI tools, but I think where you really have AI is when you're using the workflows that
For
connect
sure.
these different tools together, because that is where the sweet magic happens and you really get something in place that is also learning. The more you put into it as well, and the more you feed back into these systems and you make sure you tweak, your tone, and particularly when they're connected to something like ChatGPT as well, I think that becomes a really powerful thing to be able to use, particularly as a small business, because if not, you need an army of people and you're constantly trying to give that feedback. So to build that feedback loop in what you're doing is just honestly amazing. And the time it saves, the outreach that you're able to do, the marketing you're able to create, the creatives that you're able to do as well with the tools are just honestly amazing.
Yeah, I believe so too, as well, actually. So you obviously here talking a lot about AI and the power of AI. I think that, say, tools that leverage AI is one part of it, but actually, if you want to leverage yourself the maximum power of AI, it's also about creating processes that kind of have all these tools talk to each other and then are able to kind of have some kind of output at the end. And what can you tell us about AI agents?
So I like this topic. I think it's a really interesting hot topic. I have so many people saying, I'll build you an AI agent. We can build one. I think you've got to be very careful as to what that means. So sometimes people talk about an AI agent and they're basically building you a custom chat GPT, which, it is useful.
Why don't we take a step back? So, for the ones who probably are, say, haven't heard of it yet, or probably are still curious to know exactly what it is, how would you describe what is an AI agent?
So personally, I would describe an AI agent as a workflow or set of workflows or processes that you have set up through AI that is delivering or streamlining tasks in your business. And let me widen that out a little bit more. I think you can use them in a multitude of different ways. I think some people think that an AI agent is a little bit like a executive assistant almost, and it's going to do everything for you, and you're gonna, it's gonna be this magical little thing that can, put everything, all the kind of admin tasks of your business together. For me, an AI agent is a carefully considered and built set of processes that streamline your business. And so by that, I mean, it's not just a custom chat GPT that will talk to you about booking your travel and understanding your preferences. It may be a process that you have built where you get an invoice that drops into your inbox. You have, a Zap that connects that through to your accounting software. I'm going to pick Zero because it's what I have. It takes that, it goes into Zero, it creates it for you, it logs it, it does all the element for it, and it's sitting there ready for you to approve it. I think you can build areas of chat GPT to understand your needs a little bit better, but I think there's a lot of different processes that you would build behind what I would call a true AI agent. And for me, it would be connecting a few of those tools along with your inbox. I think that's one of your inbox and calendar, but it's connecting a few things together. But I do believe they have to be custom built. for your needs, rather than someone coming saying, I've got an off-the-shelf agent for you. I think that's that they can still be beneficial, but I think my experience of those is, AI isn't quite as sophisticated as saying it's an agent at this moment in time. You need to be able to build that out to have something.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that an AI agent is not just, say, ChatGPT wrapped in different layer and different UI layer. It's actually a process that, first of all, you need to have set up. Because at this point in time, AI is not able to understand itself how it can better help you in terms of like sequence of action. So once the sequence of action is set up, then it's also easier for AI to understand what it needs to do on each step.
Exactly. And then you can set up ChatGPT on the front of that to be your communicating channel with it, which I think is a really powerful way to do it. But nothing on its own is going to do what I think a view of some people have as an AI agent without building that in the back end.
Cool. So you mentioned today, let's say, the tool that you use in order to do LinkedIn outreach, also that you have a Zapier sequence to kind of personalize the message that you send to each one of them. You also mentioned a different one before, so a tool that is helping you for presentations. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, Gamma. I think that's my favorite. It's like magic in front of your eyes.
Is there anything else that you would like to share in terms of like tools or tips, or even, for example, ways in which you use ChatGPT?
Yeah, so I love Notion. I use that for my project management. I actually use it for my life management, if I'm honest. I feel like work and life get so intertwined. I have a very busy home life with 3 wonderful little boys as well. So my Notion is like my whole work and life world. Really great to be able to connect again through with my calendars, with my emails. It integrates really well with Fixer so that my notes can feed into it really well. But effectively, it gives a really good overview of my projects, what I've got on. It auto kind of updates, with team members where they're at. So it's not just, again, taking that time out of what's happening. So I love Notion for that. ChatGPT is obviously like my best friend. I mean, it's a mixture of my work buddy, my therapist, it's everything. But what I do like to do, as I said, is I have my folders for clients that I work with, so it keeps everything very specific. I think sometimes the memory of ChatGPT can be a bit hit and miss, so I try to keep it very structured in there. I have my custom GPTs as well, so if I'm looking to do LinkedIn activity or social activity, whatever it is that I'm looking to do, whether that's from a business angle, a personal angle, again, I try to keep them quite separate, because I find the more specific you are and the more you put into it, the more it learns and you get out of it. So I think that's a really good way, and a good tip for anybody to be using it. Don't just dump everything into ChatGPT and use it that way. You use it as folders and structures and build it out. It's absolutely worth it to do that. So I think that's one of my favorite. And whatever your kind of go to for generative AI is, that again, different people have different views, and my preference is I try and keep everything into 1 or 2 tools, particularly for the written content side of things, because it learns so much. And I think when you start to fragment it against so many tools, then actually you lose the learning that is so great from the LLMs. So I would definitely advise that.
I think it's a very good tip. And so nowadays you have at least a bunch of those that are quite popular, right? Next to ChatGPT, you have Claude, you have Perplexity, you have DeepSeek. Again, for someone who's not that familiar with those, like what's in a nutshell, what would you say is the main difference and better application of each one of these tools?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think, they all have different usability in terms of, if you're using it more for a specific marketing angle, and I think if you were using it as a larger business, if I'd say, and you're thinking like, right, my marketing is going to maybe come out of Claude, this is going to come out of like research, might come out of DeepSeek. But to be honest, I think they're all very big open models. So I think, to be quite honest, pick your model and let it learn you, and if you find that you're not getting what you want out of it, then pick another and have a play around with it. I have access, I have accounts on all of them. And to be honest, I find personally, I generally tend to come back to ChatGPT. I do use sometimes Perplexity for a little bit more research base, which could be really helpful, but it knows me so well because I use ChatGPT so well that I feel like it now kind of knows my ins and outs. So I think I would still advise, have a play. If you're new to them, go in, have a play, they've all got so many users, their learning is amazing, interfaces are relatively similar, but people have personal preferences. So I think that you've got to feel comfortable with what you're using. But I go back to the point that the more you use one, the more it learns about you and the better output you'll get.
Cool. I guess the question for now, everyone who listen and is now very excited about the possibility of adopting AI for their processes is like, how do I start to do it myself, right? So what kind of advice would you give to someone who's like, okay, I want to try to do it myself? Would you suggest to just try to do it yourself? Get some resources. Is there anything very valuable that you have found?
So the biggest piece of advice I have is do your workflows. So AI is only as good as what you think you're going to get out of it. So please, take the time to map out what you're doing. So for example, if that was your social media and you're like, goodness, it would be great if I can just chuck it into ChatGPT, like spend half an hour and say, what is my process for this? So it might be coming up with ideology, then it might be some research, it might be looking at competitors, really look at that process to work out if you wanted to have, the perfect calendar, say a month's worth of social content, how would you work that out? But again, don't just do it from your business, look at it from your competitors, build out that workflow and then sit down and go, cool, right, how can I use the AI tools to do this? And again, I'd say start at the start of the journey. It sounds really logical, but do start with point one and say, right, my research. Okay, well, my research might be a little bit of competitors. It might be a little bit my business. It might be just coming up brainstorming ideas. What tool can I use to do that? Right, I might use, I don't know, I'm going to use ChatGPT because we talked about it so much to do that, as well as, maybe some research of what others have done on LinkedIn. So I would build that out first, get it working. Great. Okay. The next bit is I'm going to write my ideas, and then you'll use different tools. So some people might have Hootsuite, depending on how big and complex you are. You might do it yourself still. You might just feed it into a Google Sheet. Love Google Sheets. In my background, love them all. But you don't need to go too big either. It's about streamlining what you do. And once you've got that singing, then you can build on it and you can improve it. So I'd say, don't wait, start small, understand your process, and then just go for it. Research.
Beautiful. So the very first thing that you recommend is, first of all, study and analyze your own internal processes and make sure that you build workflows that kind of match them.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Because
cool.
If you don't, you're just putting AI tools on and you're going, cool, it's going to do this in this direction and it's going to do this in this direction. And I think if you tighten up what you're doing in a business, is really good from you as a business owner. And when you look at the tools, you'll be like, wow, it does these cool things I didn't know. So you'll expand your process as you go, but make sure it's delivering for you. That's the point of it. It's a tool for you. It's not like something that's going to run your business the other way around.
Beautiful. Cool. Well, Abby, I think we talked about so much today. So I really want to thank you for your time. As a last question, so I would like to ask you, what's the best way for listeners to get in contact with you and know more about what you guys are doing?
Amazing. Well, please find me on LinkedIn. It's probably one of the best ways, on Abby Bentley, or drop me an email at abby@osenso.co. But yeah, please do look me up. I'd be happy to give any tips and recommendations to anybody out there.
That's amazing. Thanks a lot. It has been a brilliant chat.
Amazing. Thank you. What a pleasure to be on with you today. Really enjoyed it.